I'm Eric Wolf, and my experience in business peer groups has changed my life, especially my membership in Vistage, one of the world's largest CEO advisory groups. I'm an entrepreneur, a business owner, and a Vistage speaker on the power of marketing. This podcast is dedicated to the people who make those experiences possible, the peer group chairs. Every episode, I interview a Vistage chair who has dedicated their time to helping entrepreneurs like me succeed. My guest today, and I will own up to the fact that I almost started this podcast without pressing record. My guest today is Mindy Phillips. Mindy is a new chair here in the Denver area, and welcome.
Thanks, Eric. Thanks for having me.
So you and this is kind of cool for me because I haven't had quite this experience before.
Yeah,
But you and I kind of come from similar worlds,
indeed.
and that's really super cool. So I ran an agency for a long time. You ran
Okay.
an agency for a long time.
Yep.
Um, what I would love to hear um, about you as a business owner and obviously as a marketer, and then
Sure.
I'd love to hear, and then we'll talk about how you became a Vistage chair because either way you're herding cats, right?
That's so true. Well, Eric, owning an agency is chaos all the time, all day, every day. So I co-founded and co-owned a digital marketing agency here in Denver, and we started out, managing paid search and SEO campaigns, and grew it into, well, actually, we started in email, but then we grew it into social media and analytics and visual dashboards and all kinds of stuff. And so I started out in paid search and eventually built our client services group, which was, account directors and account managers, and then, moved into operations and ultimately became the COO and then president. So I had a lot of different hats over 18 years of being there.
What brought you to start the company?
So
What did you think it was going to be?
Well, the original idea was our CEO, Cindy Brown, and I had worked with her at a company called, well, it was Experian, and we were building an email service provider. And we all got laid off. My husband was part of that company as well. We all got laid off when Experian decided to buy versus continue to build. And Cindy wanted to start her own thing. And so she invited myself and my husband, Brian. We all worked together at Experian. She invited us over to help her start the company then. And at that point, it was just email, and we continued to add services and just evolved from there. And we reincorporated, restructured the company in 2014, I believe, because of a rather, well, that's a whole nother story for another day. But
Sure.
some other co-founders joined us at that point, and we really took off, and we really kind of got our roots into specialty retail and fashion retail and e-commerce. So it was, and I loved e-commerce because it was a lot of data to work with.
Yes, so lot of numbers, a lot of analytics, lot of things, things to play with and adjust.
Exactly.
And you guys had some, correct me if I'm wrong, but you guys had some really impressive clients.
Well, thanks, Eric. We thought they were fun, but yeah, we had a lot of the big names in fashion, like Kate Spade, and we worked with a lot of the VF Corp brands, so the North Face and Vans, and we also worked with Coors for a while. So we had a lot of really interesting brands that we worked with, which made the job really interesting and fun.
When did you decide that it was time for a different adventure for you?
Well, we had the company for about 18 years, and the plan was always to grow it to a valuable asset or a valuable company to sell or be acquired by a strategic partner. And we decided we were all ready and tired for something new and different. And during the pandemic, of course, sure, why wouldn't you want to sell your company during the
Sure.
pandemic? So we sold the company, found a great partner, sold the company, and I was there for about a year and helped with the integration. And then, as many of these things go, they said, your services are no longer needed here. Thank you very much for your service. And um, most of the original co-founders were all let go. So
And this is, I've talked to a lot of business owners and frankly a lot of chairs who have a similar story of how they
right,
exited
sure,
their business of being ultimately um, pushed out or fired
sure,
or phased out of the company that they
right,
started.
sure.
What advice would you give somebody who is right now going through that that process of being an employee at their own company?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think you have to kind of learn all new, personalities and all new ways that people like to work, and you have to really understand what the company's objectives are. And we thought we kind of knew when we were acquired, but I think just really getting in and forming those relationships very early, and digging into those relationships and not taking anything for granted. But these things are always that I hear a lot of times these things are hard. So
Oh yeah.
I fortunately I was ready to start the next chapter in my life. So it wasn't a huge um, you know shock, I suppose. But yeah, I would say those relationships are really really key.
So you are now on your own. What led you to Vistage, or what were you thinking that you were going to do at that point?
Yeah, so I really took a lot of time and did some resting, because that agency life is
Yeah.
is it's tiring and exhausting. And so I really took some time to just think. And what I thought about during that downtime was the things I loved about the agency were, the relationships that I had with my team, and supporting them through their career transformation and their career development. And I led teams, and so that was really fulfilling for me. And I loved the business operations and the business side of it. And so I thought, what could I do that would embody those things that I loved about my previous role? And that was, Vistage Chair was the thing that really came up for me, because you get to work with small businesses that are going through a lot of what we went through, and you get to support these leaders that really need support. And so it was a perfect sort of marriage of what I enjoyed about my past life, I guess.
When how has the reality of being a chair been different than what you thought it was going to be when you started a chair academy or any
Hmm.
of that?
Yeah, well, I'm sure you've heard this from a lot of chairs, but it's a hell of a lot harder than you ever thought it was going to be. It's so the time that it took was a lot more than I thought, and also um, the intensity of the effort was a lot more than I thought it was going to be. I kind of liken it to you know online dating. If you're trying to find your perfect match on an online dating, and you want to connect with that person, you want that person to connect with you, but then that person also has to connect with at least 8 other people in the group, and they also have to take a leap of faith, having never been many of them
Right.
never been in a program like that before. So it's there's a lot of layers to build to build upon. It's not just kind of
Well, and unlike online date, like there isn't the point in online dating where it's like, oh well, now I have to date all 8 of you. Like that's not,
right,
that's a totally different situation.
right.
But no, the dynamic of the group is super important because you're not selling one thing 8 times. The thing that you're selling is changing with each new person that you bring in.
Absolutely, yeah, absolutely. That's a good point. You have to kind of always be nurturing those dynamics, and paying attention to the dynamics of the group.
And you have a small business group,
I do. Hmm.
which is awesome. The small business group is still, I think they're becoming a little bit more common,
Yeah,
but they're still like the sort of
the earlier on.
stepchild little,
Hmm.
of the CE group, which is,
Yeah.
the what so many people come in and they're like, oh yeah, I'm gonna have four CE groups or what have you. And
Right. Right.
what made you decide to go with the small business group?
You know, I just loved being a part of our agency when we were going through all of those stages of growth, and the slightly crazy people that decide to start their own businesses. I really wanted to support them, and now that I'm into it, it's great because I get to work with a lot of first time CEOs. So these are people that are really passionate about what they're doing, but they most of them have never owned a business before and have never led groups before, teams before, and so that's really exciting to be a part of that journey with them, and it's pretty exciting.
Um, did you say the slightly crazy people who it does take a little bit of, it's you're not conventionally sane if you decide to do this.
Right. Yeah, it's a really really difficult venture to start your own business, and so I think that you have to have a lot of grit and a lot of passion, and obviously a lot of support is helpful too.
What's one of the most, and the other cool thing about, getting to have this conversation with you now is that you're a new chair.
Right.
You're kind of, freshly, when did your group officially launch?
It was in September of last year.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So you're, as of recording this, you're still less than a year in.
Right.
Um, what has that first 10 months taught you?
Oh gosh, that's a good question, Eric. I think it's something that you continue to have to nurture and evolve, and it's just like anything else. It's not quite what you would expect it to be, and there's always as an ongoing recruiting of people to join the group, and I very much want this to be a high performing group, and so you have to be choosy about the people that you talk to, whether so that's it's a long game, and I really care about the people in my group, and so I want to find other quality people to bring into the group, and it takes some effort to find those people, but the conversations that I get to have with people as I'm telling them about the group have been great. Whether they join the group or not, it's been really interesting to meet all kinds of business leaders in Colorado that I otherwise would not have had a chance to talk to.
How has being a chair been? I'm sure that there are definitely similarities between your your work when you were running a business, and now you're still sort of running a business,
Right.
but um but in what ways have in what ways is the job different for you being
Mhm.
in this role versus your last one?
Yeah, I mean, I think the beauty of this role is that I get to work with all these individual business owners on their unique businesses, and then um, and get to work with all these unique folks. And so it's similar in the way that as an agency, we got to work with multiple clients and work with them on their individual businesses, and you got to work with the individual leaders. And so in that way, it's similar. Um, but it's you got to kind of let go of it at the end of the day after you have those conversations about what options they have when they're facing really difficult things. You have to kind of let it go and say, well, they're gonna make the right decision for them, and it's that part's a little bit hard to kind of let go of it.
Was that the hardest part for you in terms of the idea that you're no longer you're not there to tell them what to do. You're there to sort of help them find their own journey.
Yeah, I wouldn't say it's been the hardest part, but it's been the most unique part about this. I'm trying to help them to find the right decision for them,
Right.
which is different. But I kind of wish I had had that skill as a leader long ago. It's like, I'm not going to have all the answers. I'm there to help the team come to the right conclusion or the best choice, instead of telling them, what I think they should do.
Were you ever in a peer group or anything like that as an entrepreneur?
That's how I became familiar with Vistage.
Oh,
So
very cool.
yeah, I started out in a key executive group when I was COO, and then eventually transitioned into a CEO group. So I had the opportunity to be in both of those.
What was your what was the most valuable thing you feel like you gained as a member?
I mean, people say this all the time, that leadership is isolating, but it really is. And that when I first joined Vistage, I was going through a really challenging time at work, just a lot of changes and a lot of challenges, and it was really, really refreshing for me to be able to have that group to go to and be able to talk to them. So that, just having that outlet was incredibly valuable. And also the speakers were great. They were inspirational and motivational. And so you leave those meetings and you go back to your group with kind of like a renewed sense of motivation. So, it was really helpful from a lot of fronts.
How much of your experience as a Vistage member would you say is informing how you are as a chair?
For me, it's informing quite a bit, I think, because I think I understand what the building blocks are for a successful or a high performing group, or a group that, you know, really holds each other accountable and gets the most that they can out of the group. So I think I understand that more so than someone who may never have had that same experience. So I think that kind of gives me a lot of good pressure to keep the group, at a high performing level.
Well, what would you say is not not the thing that you learned by being a chair and by making this career transition, but more what's the thing that you've actually learned from your members that
From
you
my,
would say,
my members.
yeah, like what have they taught you that's been meaningful?
Yeah. They have taught me that, I don't have to have all the answers still. I still, even as a chair, think sometimes, oh,
Right.
I got to know how to, which direction this needs to go. But I think they've really taught me that the value of asking good questions is is really critical, whether you're in a leadership role or a parenting role or any kind of role. And so that's been something that's been kind of validated for me, is good questions are everything.
How what's it been like trying to, because you've got how many members do you have now?
I have 7.
You have 7 members of 7 different companies.
Mhm.
How how have you gone about trying to build a culture as a group, and how would you define the culture that you guys have?
Yeah, so I mean, being kind of 10 months into this, or whatever, some of the members are even even pretty recent. So we're still building that culture. But they've done an amazing job of speaking up and saying, "Hey, we want to spend more time together," and "Hey, we want to have more social time together," and "Hey, we want this operating agreement to be more, hold us more accountable to really bringing our A game to these meetings." And so we've had some really great conversations around what we all want this group to look like, and I've shared my perspective on what a high performing group is to me, and from my experience, and they've shared what they need. So we've really been, it's been a collaboration. It's been great.
That's awesome. If you were talking, and I imagine you have these conversations all the time where
Mhm.
um, I imagine, especially when you're talking at the small business level, that a lot of folks that you talk to haven't ever heard of Vistage.
Right.
probably haven't ever been part of a peer organization.
Right.
What, um, if you're sitting across from that person, what's the thing that you're going to tell them that's going to end up being the part that's transformative for them?
Once they join the group, you mean?
Yeah, yeah. Well, I'm sure I can speak for myself. It's a very transformative experience just knowing you. Thank you. But, but,
Yeah.
but,
Thank you.
what's the thing that you tell them is going to be the most valuable part about being in the group?
Yeah. I mean, I think a lot of people, especially if they've never been in a peer group before and they've never owned a company, they feel very at first they feel very exposed. They don't want people to see that they don't know a certain thing or that they haven't had experience with a certain thing. And so the thing that I really try to tell them is like, nobody is going to judge you. You're here to learn. We've all had areas of our leadership where we didn't know what we were doing, or we were, needed support. And this is for you to grow. And so it's been really cool to see, people come in who maybe at first were a little bit reserved and have since really opened up and seen the value of being vulnerable and being unafraid to admit that they don't know the answer, or that they're scared, or
And
whatever.
or that things are bad,
Right.
that they're failing, that they're
You're right.
all of those things. You you learn early on as an entrepreneur. At least this was my experience, where and you were constantly, and especially if you're the founder of the business and you don't have a team right away, it's like you're the face of the whole company,
Right.
and you're constantly going places, and you're constantly shaking people's hands, and hey, how's it going?
Right.
And there's only one answer: man, it's great.
Right. Right.
Because you can't go to a trade event or
Right.
to a business association or anywhere
Mhm.
and tell people, you know what,
I'm terrified.
it is it is rough right now
Yeah.
and I don't know what to do.
Yeah.
Like, no one ever says that to you.
Right. No, absolutely. I mean, it's been pretty amazing and humbling for these folks to come in and at first be like, I think I have everything under control, and then a couple of meetings later, they're like, oh my God, this is really scary. I could use some help.
Right, right. Well, Mindy, thank you so much. You've been a wonderful guest. I really appreciate you coming on. I'm glad that I pressed record. And
Sure.
if folks want to get in touch with you, what's
Sure.
the best way?
Sure. They can reach me at my email, which is mindy.phillips@vistagechair.com, or they can reach me on my cell phone, which is 303-517-3849. And I would be love to talk with any new faces.
Awesome. Thank you so much. I really, really appreciate you doing this.
Thanks, Eric. It was great to talk with you.
Thanks for listening to this episode of Chairwaves. You can subscribe to our feed using Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or your platform of choice. You can also visit chairwaves.com for more information. Chairwaves is hosted and produced by me, Eric Wolf, and to connect with me, you can visit my website at ewolf.live. That's EWOLF.live. And a disclaimer: while I love Vistage and CEO peer groups, this podcast is not owned by or affiliated with Vistage or any other peer organization. Thanks for listening.